Really appreciate you guys coming out, listen to the candidates. We wanted to host this debate, to be more part of the process, be more involved as the Reagan League. We founded the Reagan League a few years ago and been taking baby steps towards becoming I use the word prominent figure in local politics, and I think we're getting there. I want to introduce also some of my cohorts. We have Liz Kolstad here. We have Gina Wallace, who are an integral part of Reagan League. I'll introduce the moderators and the candidates in a second. One of the moderators is also part of our organization. Real quickly, just a brief overview of how the rules are gonna run. Each moderator will ask a question to each of the candidates. It can be an individual question for a candidate, or it can be one question for all the candidates. Candidates will have 2 minutes to respond. Danny here, our timekeeper, will ring a bell one time when it's about 10 seconds before the end of time, and twice when time is up. If one candidate happens to mention another candidate at the discretion of the moderators, that other candidate may respond for 30 seconds, and again, the timekeeper will let them know when time is up. There will be no opening statements. However, there will be closing statements for 1 minute for each candidate. Hopefully we can keep it to about a minute. We don't want to run too much over. So let me introduce first the moderators. We have John Ellis from the Fresno Bee, political columnist. Thank you for coming, John. We have Jake Sobral, CEO of this organization, Bitwise Industries. And we have Brian Raymond. He's another founder of Reagan League. He is also an Atwater City Councilman and chairman of the Merced County Republican Party. Okay, and now the reason we're all here, we have the candidates, right? We'll start here on the left. We have Dr. Gary Bredefield. We have Holly Carter, and we have Jeremy Pierce. Thank you for coming. And we're all here to hear from the candidates, so we're gonna dispense with the formalities, and we'll go ahead and start. We'll just start with John Ellis and work our way across the table. So, John, if you want to start off with questions, please go ahead.
Am I asking just general to anybody surfing, or?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. There's a lot of publicity surrounding the Somerset apartments, where we had the many of the adults and the children were living in these apartments that were woefully out of code. PG&E went in and shut off the gas. I think, as you probably well know, it's a highly publicized event. As a city council member, this is obviously outside of District 6, but still a vital citywide interest. What would you do to make sure that we do not have incidents such as this occurring in the city?
Am I supposed to go first, Seraphin? You want me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead, Gary.
Okay. Well, first of all, as a city councilman, you need to be concerned about every area of the city. It doesn't matter if Somerset happened in another district. All of us as potential council members need to be concerned about that problem everywhere. Slumlords, and that's what, frankly, Mr. Henry is, should not be allowed to get away with what they do. There are hundreds of people there. It got highlighted because they lost their electricity and their water, but the poor conditions were there for a long time. We have rules, we have codes, and the city has been negligent in making sure that the landlords, particularly out-of-town landlords, are making sure that their apartments are within code. That's exactly what was going on there until they had PG&E problems, and then it became highlighted. As a councilman, as a council member, we need to beef up our code enforcement. We need to take it very seriously. I liked the response when it happened. The council member who was there stood up. The mayor was involved right away. But that needs to happen ongoing all the time, and then you won't have those kinds of problems. So we have rules in place to make sure that people are living in habitable places, that their apartments are well-maintained, heated, the buildings are maintained. And so I think Mr. Henry highlighted what's wrong in some parts of our town and what's wrong with some apartments. And we can't allow that to happen. It should never happen again. And there should be fines and penalties. Apparently there are lots of penalties pending if he doesn't do what he was supposed to do. But I think he should be fined anyway. And I think anybody who creates those kinds of environments and apartments for people should definitely be fined and made sure that this doesn't ever happen again.
Is that all? Great. Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. I think that obviously there needs to be due diligence spent on the part of the city and code enforcement to make sure that we are keeping on top of issues like this. But what I can say is, I guess, really a question. How is it that this property, which has Section 8 funding, continue to pass inspections, year after year after year? So if the inspections are being done and the property is being passed, doesn't that show that it's, habitable, and they are basically saying that, all is good? So I think we need to take a really long and deliberate look at our code enforcement and policies, and probably an overhaul is in order. But in terms of absent owners, many people call them slumlords, whatever, but this is a absent owner. We can't allow that. We can't allow this basically small city to go without heat and other essential services needed to keep the city safe. But again, I yield back to the question of why was this property being approved time and time again by Section 8 and other housing authority or code enforcement bodies that said that everything was okay, and then all of a sudden it's not. So I would want to take a really serious, hard look at that.
Yeah, I think the Somerset apartment fiasco shined a bright light on this problem. The city has rules. We expect you to obey them. Code enforcement needs to be beefed up so that it is enforced, and violations are handed out and fines are handed out. But I don't want to see the whole industry painted with a broad brush. Most landlords, most property owners are offering reasonable rentals at fair prices. And I don't want the whole industry painted because of a few bad apples. And we have to keep in mind also it's a two-way street. I talked to homeowners in in District 6 who have rentals in other parts of the city. And the tenants have a responsibility to keep the places up so they're not destroying wealth and causing heartaches for the landowner. So it's a two-way street, really. But it's unacceptable for people to be going without heat and hot water for weeks on end, and that's unacceptable.
Thank you. So as we get started here, I want to take you to the complete opposite end of the spectrum. And we talk a lot about homelessness and crime and the very real problems we need to fix in our city. But I'm really interested to know from each of you, what are the things going on right now today in our city that make you very hopeful and excited, the sorts of things you want to support and further should you get elected?
Again, who's that for?
All of you. Holly, why don't you go ahead and start this?
Okay, great. Well, first of all, what makes me hopeful is that the American dream is alive and well in Central Valley. So I think that the city of Fresno serves as ground zero for anything and everything that anybody wants to do. We still have the abilities here. We've got affordable housing. We've got agriculture as the economic base. Anything is possible, so that makes me excited. And in fact, I represent a client that's global, and in their white paper in trying to decide where to do business, it said that the American dream is alive and well in the Central Valley, and I saw that and I thought, wow, that's incredible. Also, gosh, this was probably 8 years ago. I remember being part of a project that they said that 40% of the growth over the next 30 years was going to happen in the Central Valley, and Madera was ground zero, just as a frame of reference. So when you look at those numbers, that's pretty astronomical. And when you look at the fact that retail chases rooftops, we've got some really neat things coming up. So it's really incumbent upon us now as a city to prepare ourselves for that and set ourselves up to really open the door for business here in the city of Fresno, and make sure that we're ready to capture that retail before other peripheral cities do. So there's many things to look forward to, and that is certainly one of my top, I guess, visions and exciting opportunities, if you will.
Maybe Jeremy, for you, what are some of the specific things? And then as a city councilman within that role, what do you view your responsibility and role as in furthering and perpetuating those things?
Sure. I think that maybe Gary might be seen as the person most supportive of downtown, but that's something that I'm excited about. I think after years of talk of downtown revitalization that we're just about ready to turn the corner. There's a lot of exciting things happening, builders fighting over spots now that Fulton Street's going to be opened. And so I want folks to know downtown who are excited about the progress that I'm with them, and I will be part of that as a councilman. We need to provide incentives. It's not a natural sometimes to come down here, but we have to keep moving forward. Now that housing's coming downtown, the Assimi family with 400 units, Mehmet Noyan and Terrence Frazier being a part of that, you, Jake, down here. There's a lot of exciting things going on in downtown, and like I say, I think we're just about ready to turn the corner, and I'm excited about that.
Same question for you, Gary.
I share, excuse me, I share a lot of the same things that Jeremy said. I was going to talk about how things have changed so much downtown since I was on the council. When I was on the council, we fought hard to get the downtown baseball stadium done. It is there. There's investment happening downtown. We built a new exhibit hall, the expansion of the regional medical center. We're in a beautiful building. I asked you before how much it cost. It was a $6 million building. That's a tremendous investment downtown. We have projects that are going on. The Fulton Mall's being opened up. And when I was on the council, we had a lot of naysayers who didn't believe in the downtown. Well, I'm seeing a lot of people who believe in the downtown. I see a lot of people who believe in Fresno. I've always been optimistic about Fresno. I've gotten tired of hearing how Fresno has potential. I think we're starting to realize the potential. And it isn't just downtown. As I'm walking precincts and talking to people, people are excited about this community. We are in the middle of everything. You go down to LA, you go up to San Francisco. There is affordable housing for most people here. I'm tremendously excited about this city. I love this city. I've met people who love this city, so I think there's reason for tremendous optimism now and into the future.
Okay, my question's for Dr. Bredefeld. I want to touch on the baseball stadium a little bit. Having enjoyed many games there myself, it's no secret that it's been a financial burden on the city's treasury, and monies that could be spent to hire police officers are now going to pay for the stadium. Do you think the baseball stadium was a good investment? And if you had to do it over again, would you make the same deal today that you've done before, knowing the burden placed on the city's treasury?
Yeah, I would make the exact same deal because under the circumstances, that was the best deal we could get. These stadiums are built in private-public partnerships, and that's exactly what happened with the city of Fresno. The city spent 55% of what's owed, and the Grizzlies' ownership spent 45%. I researched all stadiums throughout the entire country when we did that deal. That's the way they get built. And there are a lot of people who, were naysayers and said we shouldn't do this. The fact is I believe in Fresno, and I believe that this is the best AAA stadium in all of the country. Nobody disputes that. We have the best naming rights in all of the country. Chitansey Casino believed in the city that they invested $16 million over 5 years. We have 500,000 people that come to that stadium. When I grew up, I had a baseball stadium that I could go to and watch professional baseball. And I always believed that the kids of Fresno and their families had a right to grow up watching baseball games or soccer games or concerts in a fantastic stadium. I believed in it. And I think over 15 years, 7.5 million people that have come through there, the development that's taking place, Mehmet Noyan going to invest $30 million just outside the center field fence, people living downtown. I think there's no question the stadium's a jewel in our downtown. There's no question that it's a economic boon for the downtown area. We now have the national flag of AAA baseball flying over our stadium. We have national recognition in Fresno. I don't think anybody can dispute it's been a wonderful thing. And some people will say, well, we should have built an 8,000-seat stadium instead of 12,500. I heard people say we should have berms. We've sold out that stadium where there's 16,000 people. When Fresno Fuego was there, we've had 14,000 when the Grizzlies are there. If we had built an 8,000-seat stadium, we'd have needed 2 stadiums to hold those events. So I believe in this town. I will always fight for this city, and I think we did the right thing, and I am so proud of the citizens of Fresno that they've supported it, and we have it in our downtown.
Thank you, and this is true throughout. Did anybody want to respond?
I'd like to respond. The downtown stadium is a beautiful stadium. There's no doubt about that. I attend games there. I rented it for my own business use. I performed there. So there's no doubt it's a beautiful stadium, but that's not the point. The point is that this guy right here put us all in this room on the hook for $104 million of debt. Debt that could have been used for police officers, and instead, for 30 years, we have that hanging around our neck in good times and bad. Mayor Patterson at the time said it was going to be a disaster. It has been a disaster. The 4 times that it sold out that Gary talks about, in how many years? Not only that, not only did Gary put us on the hook for $104 million, that's not all he wanted at that time. If you go back, when he ran for mayor, he had a document called the Bredefeld Vision. And the Bredefeld Vision also included an extra $25 million for a lake. Now think if he would have gotten that and how the maintenance, when that didn't occur, how that lake would look over there at Bredefeld Lake, Gary. I know how the ponds look at Woodward Park after a little bit of time without maintenance. So Gary was a big spender. That's how he was on the council before. That's how he'd be on the council again. And we can't let him get his hand in the cookie jar again, Gary. And this is the bottom line. Gary's running on strong, proven leadership. That's on his sign. And I think John Brodsky of KMJ summed it up best when he said the only thing Gary Bredefeld's ever proven is that he could get us in debt better than anybody else.
Okay. Let me clarify some things. First of all, this is the naysayer mentality that exists in Fresno here. If it were up to Jeremy, that would still be a piece of dirt. Or we would have berms.
Or cops.
Can I finish? Okay, yes.
Okay.
We could have that be dirt, and we could have more cops. Any project that the city of Fresno does, if you invest in that, whether we built a new exhibit hall, you might as well talk about that. If we didn't have the new exhibit hall, we could have more cops. You know, if we didn't have Selland Arena, we could have more cops. If we didn't have Soroyan Theater, we could have more cops. Frankly, if we didn't invest in Woodward Park or any maintenance, we could have more cops. You could do that with anything. The fact is, we balanced 4 budgets in a row when I was there. The fact is, what this cost the city is 0.5% of the general fund. This makes for good politics, but it doesn't make for moving the city of Fresno forward. I make no apologies about it. When he says $104 million, of course. What is your full debt when you buy a house and you have a mortgage? The house costs $200,000 and you take out a loan. You're not paying just $200,000. You're going to pay $350,000 over 30 years. So it makes for good politics to try to denigrate that deal or the city. The fact is, it was the best thing for the city. People are proud of it. And this is the naysayer mentality that I've always fought against and will continue to fight against.
No. He mentioned my name, I think.
I didn't.
Yeah, no. Mayor Patterson, now Assemblyman Patterson, has endorsed me in this race, even though he served with Gary, because of Gary's bad decisions at that time. Listen to a wannabe career politician dismiss $104 million worth of debt. That's what we get all the time when, look, my wife and I just bought a new car. We got a bunch of things on it we didn't have to have, but we're paying for it, Gary. You left us with the bag, and you've been gone for 15 years, hoping that we forgot about all that, but we didn't. And the voters of District 6, they're pulling up their signs, Bredefeld signs, when they're reminded of what you put us through, Gary, and we're not going to let you do it again.
You know what they're doing? When I come to the door, they're saying, you built that stadium, put the sign in. When they understand, let me finish. Yeah. When they understand the real facts of the deal, rather than this kind of mentality, they support the stadium. I will always continue to fight for the stadium and for things and projects to move forward for the city. If we have this mentality, Fresno will always remain 15 years behind other cities. Think about other cities that you like visiting. Do they have empty land, just vacant things, or do they have amenities that draw people to their cities? It's this mentality.
Let private
that will
industry
keep
build
us
it,
back.
Gary.
And as far as the endorsement of Mayor Patterson, we fought hard against Mayor Patterson because he didn't want that stadium. That's fine. So he lost. The citizens of Fresno, the kids and the families won. I'm proud of it.
So thank you both for the spirited debate on that front. Jeremy, I want to come back to you because I'm very interested in how do you achieve economic development in Fresno and specifically in downtown absent investments like that. I can speak from personal experience that we would not be in this spot as Bitwise Industries absent the stadium. It was a compelling factor, as was the convention center, as was the hotel, as was the revitalization on Kern. And so, not to make any conclusion about how you get there, I'm interested in your ideas about what would you use to spur on economic development in downtown absent investments like the stadium?
Sure. I'm all for working with businesses to come downtown. Tax incentives, infrastructure, but don't come to the city looking for it to be your damn banker. We're not going to use the general fund as a backstop for private investment. We can't do that. My policy is to focus on the essentials. And we can't do that if we're doing things like the stadium and the Met Museum and Granite Park, to where the city is on the hook and that money's coming out of the general fund. So I'm all for providing incentives, but we can't use the general fund as a backstop. Absolutely not. And I'll fight against that every day because people deserve well-maintained streets. They deserve well-maintained sidewalks and water security and public safety. Those are the things that we promise as local government, not putting the tax dollars at risk for private enterprise.
So I want to hone in one more time on that. What specifically would you do to cause that economic development? So those are what you wouldn't do. What would you do?
Infrastructure, providing infrastructure, and tax incentives. We're going to have to provide some serious tax incentives to get people to come to Fresno, and particularly to come to downtown Fresno. And so I'm all for doing that and working out deals where we can give tax credits and so forth, but just not general fund dollars backing the projects.
Do we respond? Yeah, so basically he would do nothing. There are tax incentives been there all along. The bottom line is when we built the stadium, we still fixed the streets. We still built infrastructure. It is not one or the other. That's a boogeyman argument. You can do all of it. We did all of it. That's why we have improvements in the city, and we'll continue to improve the city, and that's why we'll continue to do things like the stadium, and people support it, except we have naysayers, like Mr. Pierce, that will hold the city back. We cannot allow that to happen. I'm glad he enjoys all of the things that are happening downtown. But if he had been on the council before, when I was there, we wouldn't have the stadium. And you would not be here with this beautiful $6 million building called Bitwise Industries. Because as you said, the stadium had a direct impact on that. This building that we're all sitting in, we would not be here. We would, and perhaps Mr. Pierce would feel better if we were sitting on dirt. I happen to like this here.
Why don't you ask Holly about if she thinks that stadium deal was good? Was that a good? Well, I shouldn't ask her. You could ask her.
For a second.
I'm just
Well,
I'm enjoying the banter. I didn't, far be it from me to interrupt, but
Go ahead, Holly. Let's hear what your thoughts on the stadium are.
well, the Grizzlies are one of my clients, and I got to tell you that in 2009. The city of Fresno was working really hard to get rid of the team, and it was one of those things that the consequences of losing the Grizzlies was not something that we could afford to have happen.
Up to you, but so you're saying that
I'm
they were
getting
trying to
there.
get rid of the team.
Yes, they wanted to replace the team with. They were out soliciting new buyers for the team, and there was a lot of information that was missing in that, such as the naming rights deal would have gone by the wayside had the Grizzlies left. There were a lot of different complicated issues involved that were I guess overlooked, for lack of a better word. But the bottom line is, if we would have not dealt with the owners of the Grizzlies to find a way to keep them here, we would have had an empty stadium. We would have been looking at least a decade before anybody would have ever taken us seriously again to even consider coming back to the stadium. So, do I like the stadium? I do. It's a beautiful facility. Do I think that that we're blessed to have it? Absolutely. Had I been there when the deal was being made, what would I have done? All I can say is, what were they thinking? But we're here now, and I am not somebody that wants to sit and harp on the past. Here is where we are, and we need to move forward. It is a beautiful facility, and I think that we need to start looking at solutions instead of sitting around talking about problems over and over again.
I don't know if I want to prolong this, Gary. What is your? Did you want
Well, I think it's very easy to be a Monday morning quarterback, except when you're in the heat of the battle and you have to lead. And that's what we did when I was there. It's very easy 15 years later to say, I would have done this or I would have done that. The other thing is that Ms. Carter says that she, in 2009, was hired by the Grizzlies. That is true. She was hired by the Grizzlies. And in 2009, she says on her own website, she led the effort to bail out the Grizzlies to the tune of $750,000 over the next 15 years. Now, she alludes to that. She had special ties to the council and to the mayor, which is not accurate. But she supported a bailout. And they changed the contract, gave the Grizzlies $750,000 over the next 15 years. That is not what should have happened. There should be no bailouts. We should not be picking winners and losers. If you want to bail out the Grizzlies, why don't you bail out Club One Casino that's going bankrupt, and they give $1 million in taxes every year. And Ms. Carter led that effort. She's proud of that. I think that was a total bailout, and I think if you want to be the council person for the district, you should be representing the taxpayers, not ripping them off.
Holly, since he brought you up, reaction?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. So my job was to try to clean up your mess, and I did it quite famously. So what we were faced with, thank you. What we were faced with is a city council that had no idea what the business of baseball was about, and they were out looking for new owners. So I was brought in to renegotiate the lease. There was no bailout. We were paying the Grizzlies were paying $1.5 million a year in lease payments. That's more than professional baseball teams pay. Had we lost that team, we were done. A decade, probably 2 decades. And your dreams for revitalization, all the things that you're working with the mayor of Fresno, Ashley Swearingen, who you and her are working on high-speed rail and all of the other things that you're working together
I don't
on.
support high-speed rail. No, I
In
don't
any
support it.
event, the point is that I'm responding to your point. I was working to bail out your mess, and I did it magnificently. Had it not been for my work, we would be sitting with an empty stadium, and there would be no revitalization of downtown. Thank you.
She mentioned me. She mentioned me.
Quickly,
What she
quickly.
said, I will. What she said is not true. There wouldn't be an empty stadium, number one. Number two, it is a $1.5 million deal that they had to pay. They supported having a beautiful stadium. I expected them to pay for it. Why should the taxpayers fund the whole thing? It's a 55-45 split, public-private partnership. If they weren't able to manage their operation as well, rather than bailing them out to the tune of $750,000, they should have helped them with their operation, promoting it, getting more people to the stadium. But the city of Fresno should not bail out any business. And Ms. Carter cost the taxpayers, however she wants to spin it, $750,000 over 15 years. They were not paying that before 2009 when she did that, and they are now. With the taxpayers are paying an additional $750,000 because of Ms. Carter.
Well, since my name was mentioned, just so we can, make this clear, not only would we have lost the team, but we also would have lost the $1 million naming rights, which only was an agreement between the current owners, which also expires next year. So we will once again be looking at the stadium deal. Was it or was it not a good deal? I didn't vote for it. That was not my baby. I came in and tried to do triage on the situation. So it is what it is. $1.5 million, that's more than professional baseball teams pay. So I don't know who in their right mind would author that kind of a deal. And, I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, I think we're ready to move on to the next issue. Very lively exchange there. So I think we all know, those of us who live in Fresno or Clovis know that District 6 is really in a lot of ways its own little town up there. I think Jerry Duncan referred to it as Reaganville jokingly at one point. Things work fairly well up there. There's not a lot of potholes. I hear some comparison to the rest of the city for those who live in District 6. I think its issues are different. I guess they're probably different issues. how do you see District 6 integrating with the rest of the city, which has, I think, issues that are, I think, and concerns among the populace that are much different than the average resident of District 6? And I think I'll start with Holly on this.
Great, that's fabulous. So I no longer see a difference because in District 6, we have a public safety crisis. Not a public safety problem, a public safety crisis. There is not just a problem with crime, but there is a problem with total anarchy. We can catch criminals in the act, call for police to come, and this is business owners, Sequoia Brewing Company, catch a criminal in the act. The police officers cannot come, not because they don't want to come, but because they can't. Why? Because the city leadership has consistently, year after year, continued to slash the public safety budget. So, District 6 not only is completely in tune and in line with the rest of the city in terms of problems, but I would submit to you that we are now the target of crime because the habitual vagrants, who I define as people who commit crimes to support their lifestyle, and just crime as a whole, they navigate to District 6 because they know the police won't come. They can't come. They're too busy fighting more serious crime. So, you know, I guess the question is, how do I see District 6 dealing with the issues that the rest of the city are dealing with? We're dealing with them, only we're ignored. We're ignored because we have to be ignored because the police officers are fighting more serious crimes, and they should be. And when my home is invaded at 4 a.m., I have a daughter downstairs, I have a daughter upstairs, and I don't know who to go to first when they're in my home. I gotta tell you, it's a problem. I'm no longer feeling safe in my house.
Just to follow up with Holly, just real quickly here. So you mentioned you think vagrants are the problem. You do know that the city has had a vagrancy homeless problem long before they broke up the homeless camps and I think dispersed the population. What is so? I would like to just kind of piggyback quickly on this issue. So what should we do? Send the homeless people back to District?
This is not a homeless issue.
Vagrants and homeless.
My definition of a vagrant is somebody who commits crimes as a means to support their lifestyle. These are people who could have housing, could have resources to help them if they chose them. They are rejecting those services, and they are committing crimes to support their lifestyle. On my ride along with the police department was a perfect example of that. People who they have absolutely no fear. They have no fear. As long as they are not committing violent crimes, they are not going to go to jail. And if they do go to jail, they'll be out in an hour. And the flip side, the upside of them committing these crimes, the amount of money they're making is so much greater than any risk of them going to jail. They're not even afraid. They're walking into CVS Pharmacy on Fresno and Shaw. They're stealing what they want, and if the clerk does anything to stop them, they'll pick up a can of food and throw it at them, or pull a knife.
You know that's a Prop 47 issue, state
I
issue.
understand it's a Prop 47 issue. However, a city that's a responsible city would have foreseen this coming. They would have beefed up the general funding for public safety, and they would have anticipated that we would have even more public safety issues, and they would have allocated more general funds to keep us safe, which didn't happen. And in this May's budget, as far as I'm concerned, from what I've been told, there's no additional funding either.
So you highlight there at the end of your answer an important point. We can say it would be wonderful to have additional money for public safety, but the money's got to come from someplace.
Sure.
Where would you propose the money comes from in fighting this issue as you proposed?
Well, I propose that we add another 90 officers, which is about $9 million a year. If all things go as planned, generally speaking, we should have another $18 million in the general budget based upon the increase every year. So there you go, right there is enough to pay for the 90 officers. So it's just a disproportionate amount of the general fund needs to go to public safety. We're a public safety crisis, not a public safety problem.
Yeah, as a councilman, though I would represent District 6 and of course did in the past, you have to always maintain a citywide perspective, and you have to care about every part of the city. I obviously care about District 6, but I care about somebody who's victimized in District 1 and District 2 and District 3 and every other district. We do need to increase our police department. The recession, the Great Recession in 2008, 2009 hurt us with police, it hurt us with firefighters, it hurt us with code enforcement. You asked about how to get more police. I've already outlined exactly how I intend to do it by selling unused vacant city land. We have land at Herndon and Brawley. We have land at Chestnut and Beheimer, and it's been estimated by the city's own estimates that that would yield $11 million. We have Palm Lakes Golf Course that's just sitting empty, unused, vacant. It's estimated that would be $1 million. We have convention center facilities, the entire convention center downtown. We have naming rights that we got with Chichancy for $1 million. We can get those for the convention center facility.
Do you realize, though, that some of this are just one-time capital
Yes,
project money
absolutely.
and cannot really,
Of course.
not wise to spend on ongoing expenses?
You don't want to, that's right, and that's why you don't want to spend all of that money on every police officer or firefighter. If you got $13 million, then you get 50 police officers, and you still have other monies to spend it on code enforcement and firefighters. If you get the naming rights, you will have ongoing expenditures for the next 15 years, which we can get for the convention center just as they do in other cities. So these are creative ways that we can get more money to fund public safety. And yes, it is one-time money, but when I was on the council, we hired 170 police officers when we had a crime wave going on, and we used all COPS grants money. That was one-time money, and we never laid off a police officer. We found creative ways to keep them there. We'll do the same thing.
I just wanted to say on the selling of city properties, I think you're right, John, in that if it's a one-time sale for a one-time expenditure, that's the equivalent of saying, I can't make my car payment this month. What can I sell? Look around your house and go to the pawn shop. What do you do when next month's payment comes? So if you're going to make that part of the deal, you need to take all those proceeds and put it into an annuity so that we have ongoing revenue stream from that. But we absolutely have to be creative and look for every possible new revenue stream to fund those officers. And we have to have our eye on the ball. And we have to start working on it now. Elvis's biggest worldwide hit was It's Now or Never. And let me tell you, if we don't start on that now, we're never going to get to 1,000 officers. And that's what we need.
And Mr. Pierce, that's what I want to kind of piggyback on, is you've said that you want to get the Fresno PD staff to 1,000 officers. Given the financial outlook of the city and the $104 million debt you were just previously talking about, how do you plan to get there?
Some of it's already been mentioned. Holly mentioned as the general fund increases, we need to put that toward those officers. The grants, we need to be looking for state and federal grants like they did when Patterson was our mayor. We need to go through the budget with the fine-tooth comb looking for waste. We need to look at those city properties and again, put the proceeds into an annuity, look for creative things like digital signs on city property where ongoing advertising money can go. But people have got freaked out. Oh, Jeremy's calling for 1,000 officers. That's impossible. Well, it's not an overnight thing. It's a 6 to 8 year plan. I want it done by the time I'm done on the city council, because along with the 1,000 officers, you have to have competitive pay for those officers to attract people to come to Fresno. You have to hire the support staff to go along with those 1,000 officers. But I didn't just come up with that number. Chief Dyer told me personally, 1,000 officers, Jeremy, is what I need to keep the city safe. I'm the only candidate calling for Chief Dyer's 1,000 officers, and I stand by it.
Well, I'm calling for 2,000 officers. I think we should have 2,000. I mean, there's a realistic budget. I mean, sure, I'd like to have 1,000 officers, but I'd like to get us to 850 where we were before the pre-recession in 2009. That's what we had. And when we talk about funding those officers, as I said, selling unused vacant land, we can get to that 100 right now. Ms. Carter talks about budget expansion. We do. The budget does grow each year. We can use those funds for public safety, code enforcement officers as well. But I don't want to promise things to people so it sounds good. I mean, that's the difference, I think, between myself and other folks. I have a record of leadership. When I was on the council, we hired 170 police officers over 4 years. We got it done. We did it with COPS grants. We made the city safer. We beautified the city. We eliminated graffiti. We planted trees. We built parks. We initiated the Northeast Police Substation. We got things done. And we do it within a budget. I know how to do it, I've done it, and I intend to do it again. And that's why I've outlined things that are very practical and very specific. I'm not giving pie in the sky. I'm not telling people things that they want to hear. I'm telling people what we can truly accomplish and what I know we can get done.
And we'll go to Holly before moving on
Thank
from this
you.
question.
So I actually would like 3,000 officers, since he said 2,000. I'd like 3,000. Why not? In fact, why not 30,000? While
Public
we're at it.
safety's a joke to my opponents.
No, it's not. It's not a joke at all. It has to be sustainable. So let me please finish my point. So I think there are other things that are laid out in my plans for things that we can do now that definitely help keep us safe, that are innovative. I have worked with Chief Dyer to come up with a way for business owners to, on a strictly voluntary basis, to allow the Fresno Police Department to tap into business owners' security cameras strictly if and when an incident occurs. So let me explain to you. There would be in their storefront a sign that says this location is being monitored 24/7 by Fresno Police Department with a badge. In the event that somebody breaks into this location or a 911 call is made, the Fresno Police Department can tap into it and instantly they have visibility. So now, does that necessarily deter the crime? Well, I think it might by having the sign in the front, but the most important thing is it's gonna help us catch them. So this is something that's innovative. We can also get everybody on the Nextdoor app, which is, a virtual online neighborhood watch system. So there are many things that we can do that are not being done. An exchange zone, each of our sub-districts, we can have a safe exchange zones where if you're selling a car, we can go there. There are many, many things that we can do to begin today without having to increase or draw from the general fund to make the city safer. And then in response to the COPS grant and hiring the officers, and then he said we had to get creative. Well, my opponent left office, and it was left to the elected officials that came after him to come up with those creative ways to keep those officers. So that was just a point of clarification.
I would just like to add briefly that the 1,000 number came from Chief Dyer. So when they deride that number, that's the number the chief gave me. So if they want to make fun, 2,000, 3,000, haha, that came straight from Chief Dyer, and I don't think that's appropriate.
We all know that the number is 1,000. I don't think there's any of us here on the stage that don't know that the number is
Since
1,000. Since I've been doing this for the last 10 years, trying to figure out ways to help business owners thrive and continue to grow and stay safe
Why
in the
wasn't
city
it in
of
your press
Fresno.
release as 1,000? You said 850.
So we'll
Because
move on
850,
from this
let me
particular
respond to this,
topic.
because 850 is a number where we can also add to the compensation package so we can actually attract officers from other areas and get lateral officers instead of
Thank you.
cadets,
Thank you.
where it
We'll-
takes a year to train them.
We've got to keep going. So I want to shift gears entirely and talk about an area that often doesn't get mentioned enough in Fresno, my opinion, and that is, we're taking questions here over Facebook, and from Michelle Lovelace, and it was one that I think is very important. What do you view the role of arts in Fresno and its continued growth, and how, from the council, do you think you could be supportive of that and cultural development here in Fresno?
Who's that to?
Sorry, let's start with Jeremy on that one.
Sure. I'm the closest profession to what you're talking about. I've been a performer based out of Fresno. I've been performing for 30 years, 4,000 shows, never missed a show. And I'm excited to bring my show to all parts of the city. In fact, I was so excited about what was going on with downtown that we started doing shows at Frank's Place because I wanted my Northeast friends to come down and see the improvements in downtown. And so we started doing shows there. And I think arts are a big part of what makes a city great. And there's the Rogue Festival, film festivals. There's so many great things in Fresno, and really something for everybody. And so I'm excited to promote the arts. We've brought in people from out of town to let them see various acts and amenities that we have here in Fresno. And we brought in Rock and Roll Hall of Famers, and they were impressed with what we're doing here in Fresno on the art scene. And it's an exciting time to be in Fresno.
Gary, maybe you could talk about what you view specifically as the role of arts and developing the arts and its importance to developing the economy in a place like Fresno.
Well, I think you have to promote it in the sense of using it as a podium to say, hey, look, we support our cultural arts. I think the city of Fresno can work better with Fresno Unified because they have a lot of programs promoting cultural arts. I grew up in New York City. We have a downtown and cultural arts like you can't believe. And any city that thrives has to have arts going on, theater, things of that sort. And I think that's all part of the downtown revitalization that's taking place. We are seeing more clubs opening up, restaurants opening up. I think it's going to continue to grow. But as a councilman, as a council, whoever the next mayor is, I think they have to use their podium to speak out and speak in support of any kind of development that can happen with the cultural arts. And I think we got to partner with our school districts because they have all kinds of programs for students. And I think when we're all working together, Fresno will become a better beacon for cultural arts, and we'll see it happening in our downtown, and we'll see it happening throughout the entire city.
Ollie, would you like to weigh in on that?
Absolutely. So there's two universal languages. One is math, and the other is music. So when it comes to arts, I think it's very important that we put the tools in place to reach the youth and teach them and empower them to take their God-given gifts and have an ability to share that with not only the community but the world. So as part of the CTE efforts, career technical education efforts, I am looking very much forward to seeing music as a big part of that. I know that we do incorporate music into schools, but unfortunately it's gone way by the buy side in terms of there's just not enough funding there to promote music and arts and any of the arts and education in the schools, especially elementary and junior high. So I'm looking very much forward to seeing that changed, and just cannot speak highly enough about the importance for it, because there are some children that is their calling, and that is what they love doing. And if that's something that keeps them in school, then we need to absolutely support it.
Okay, thank you. This next question's for all three, and we'll start with Dr. Bredefield and work our way over. Groundbreaking for Fresno's bus rapid transit is set to happen in the next month or so. Were you supportive of this project? And when you answer, please answer yes or no, and then give reasons why or why not.
No, I wasn't supportive of it. I'm not sure that it's going to be effective. And that's the main thing. There's a cost to it. I'm not sure that it's truly going to be something that people are going to utilize. We've had problems just using the bus system as we have it now. So for that reason alone, I would not have supported it. I would have been very concerned about it. But, when things are done, I'm not one to throw stones. I'm one to, let's see if we can get this done. It's been approved. Let's make it happen. If I were on the council, I'd be doing everything I can to help it move forward. Same as with high-speed rail. I don't support and didn't vote for or support the high-speed rail. However, having said that, there are opportunities coming to Fresno. There are jobs coming to Fresno, and I care about jobs. And so, again, I'm not going to use that as a podium to throw stones at things that are moving forward. I'm interested in getting things done. That's what I've always been about, getting things done, accomplishing things for the citizens in Fresno. So in answer to your question, no, I wouldn't have supported it. But now that it's moving forward, I hope it is successful.
Just real quick, to piggyback there, for you not being in support of high-speed rail, and I know you said jobs are coming, but would you sign the petition, or have you signed the petition to put water projects over the high-speed rail?
I would have supported water projects. I think really what we need is water. And I think the billions and billions of dollars that are going to high-speed rail should have been used for water storage. And frankly, we've got states up north that have no problem with water. It would have been great to invest in infrastructure where we could build a pipe instead of oil, having water being piped down to the valley and to California.
Will you sign the petition
To what?
to put water projects over high-speed rail?
Well, I'd have to take a look at the petition. I don't want to dodge your question, but I'm not going to pledge to anything until I see all the specifics and read it. You know exactly where I stand. I would have supported the water. I think water is our main priority, not high-speed rail. And but as it's coming, I want the jobs here.
Yes, I'm sorry, and can you repeat the question, because we got off a little bit here?
The groundbreaking for the bus rapid transit is set to happen in the next month or so. Did you support this project? Please answer with yes or no, and why or why not?
I do not support the project. I would not support the project, and the reason is because public safety is, to me, paramount. If our children are not safe, if our children are being harmed, if our families are being harmed, what difference does a BRT or high-speed rail, or what difference does anything make? I mean, if we can't have an environment where we can be safe and not harmed, the rest of it doesn't matter. With regards to signing the petition for using the money allocated for high-speed rail to for water storage, my office is one of the designated points for people to come and actually sign the petition, and I'm actually helping spearhead the efforts to get the initiative on the ballot.
No, no, I'm not in favor of BRT because I don't believe the ridership is going to be there. If we were going to spend money on buses, we ought to spend it on FACS, the bus system that we have now, and provide cleaner buses with better routes, better waiting stations, digital signage telling you route information like other cities have. But to spend $33 million on a high-speed bus that goes up and down 2 streets is a waste. I talked to a bus driver in Northeast Fresno, a city bus driver. He's furious with this. He said, we tell the city the ridership isn't going to be there. But that's the problem. Government always knows better. They don't do things on the free market system. They do it on the pie in the sky system because they want people to live on Blackstone.
I want to come in on the end of that question with, so we've got some negative opinions on bus rapid transit, but with respect to the development of our public transit in Fresno amongst cities of our similar size, we are, generally speaking, well behind. What do you view as the role of public transit, whether projects now in the works or future projects in our city's future?
Well, I think we, as has been said, I think we can do a better job with facts. I think we can do a better job in making sure that there's more frequent stops for people so they can actually use them. I mean, we know people use their cars mostly, and you have to provide, make it easy for people to use the bus system. And when I've talked to people who use it, they don't have many positive things to say about it. So I don't think we needed to do the BRT, the bus rapid transit system. I think we needed to improve the FACS system, the scheduling, making it more easy for people to utilize that system. And I think that would have been a better use of those dollars than coming up with a whole nother system.
Again, I yield back to maybe a broken record here, but I don't feel that riding the bus system now is safe. I'm told by the police chief himself that he's got concerns about safety on FACS as it is now. So until we get our public safety crisis under control, I just have no interest. It's irrelevant to me to even talk about public transportation.
Can I just interrupt Jeremy before you answer? I hear you talking about public safety a lot, Holly, and I'm just wondering, is that paramount over parks as well? Because everything that comes, you got to find the money. If some dollars go somewhere, they have to come from somewhere. I just did a story recently on the parking garages downtown. Mm-hmm. People who come to Fulton Street have to have a place to park. The parking garages are falling apart. There's like $20 million in need there. Okay, there's a lot of people advocating for parks. Kids who don't have parks, maybe they fall into a life of crime.
Well, if we can keep them safe at the parks, if they're not dealing with needles and God only knows whatever else. I mean, I've been researching calls for service at parks. If they're safe at parks, then then we can begin. In terms of the parking structures, that's a public health issue. Those have to be. I mean, we are going to get sued as a city. Those have to be addressed. So that is a triage, department of something that, yes, absolutely, that has to be dealt with. But I mean, how can we say we should build parks, we should build public transportation, when a property owner is waiting for police to show up who are fighting a more serious crime in the south end of town, and he dies in the front lawn waiting for police to show up.
Okay, Jeremy, you want to answer the original questions?
Where are we at this point? Yeah. What is the original question?
The original question is, so we've got negative opinions on bus rapid transit.
Yeah.
What are your views on public transportation in Fresno going forward? What's the future of public transportation in Fresno?
Well, again, spruce up facts for those who need the bus. Some people need the bus, but how many people in this auditorium took the bus here tonight? I don't see one hand, and that's because Fresno and the people who live here want to be in their cars, by and large. Very few people ride the bus. That's just not the Fresno way of life, so to speak. So I want to see potholes filled. You rode the bus? That's good. We'll spruce up the buses for you, but we got to fill the potholes for the other 99% of the people in here who aren't riding the bus. But we have to do the most for the most, and most people are in their cars, so we need to focus on our roads first. But for those who need to take the bus, we need to spend that money not on bus rapid transit, high-speed bus, but fixing up and improving facts. And we definitely have to do that. But as far as expanding it, the ridership isn't there. Most folks who are on the bus, there aren't that many people on it. So
Look, the bottom line is this.
Wait, Gary,
Okay, go ahead.
yeah,
I'm sorry.
we're going to move on because our time's getting short, and so if you guys can really keep your answers tight, maybe a minute and a half,
Okay.
Because we're winding down our time. So, Measure G, as you probably all know, the privatization of trash hauling failed by a very slim margin. I'd like to know your opinions on privatization of city services.
Well, when I was on the council, we did a private contract with Tree Fresno, and they planted trees all along Shepherd. So when it makes sense, when it's fiscally responsible, it's something that I'm going to always take a look at. But at the same time, you have to respect the workers of the city of Fresno. They're devoted, hardworking people. Their jobs are just as important as my job is, just as important as your job. And so it's something that you have to balance. In terms of the Measure G, it failed. And I will not support it coming back. People voted on that. And again, I always respect the vote. But as a council member, you have to always look at your budget. And you always have to make sure that you're spending every dollar wisely, which is what we did. And since I have a little time left, I just want to say one thing. You know, in response to some of the comments, you know, as a council member, you have to juggle all of this. Public safety, fixing roads, public transportation, parking garages downtown. It doesn't have to become one or the other. Clearly, our priority always is making sure the city is safe. That public safety is number one. That's our number one job. You never forget it. When you're there, you never forget it. But it isn't one or the other, and you shouldn't pit one against the other. I know it makes for good political rhetoric, but the reality is when you're governing instead of campaigning, you have to solve all of that. That's what I did on the council before, and that's what I intend to do again.
You know, I am a very fiscal conservative, and I am definitely for looking at anything that is a good solution that provides a win-win. So I would need to look at, you know, a case-by-case situation. If there's an opportunity to privatize something and free up capacity where City Hall can then take their resources and focus it towards finding ways to start and grow and nurture small businesses in the city of Fresno, I think that would be great. But you know, it's just a blanket statement. I would have to look at a case-by-case basis. But again, I'm all for being fiscally conservative, but it must be a win-win. And but then that capacity that's freed up, let's use that to make Fresno great again.
As far as Measure G goes, it was unfortunate that it split the city the way that it did, the way that it was handled. I hope nothing comes down the line like that again. However, and the voters spoke, and I respect their decision, but I'm looking out for the taxpayers' dollars, and any opportunity that came, I would take a look at it. I think that's our job as stewards of the taxpayers' money.
Okay, thank you. And this last question, what we'll do is we'll just go from Mr. Pierce over, and then in closing statements, just go right back the other direction. So this is kind of a lighthearted question for you guys. Councilman Lee Brand is vacating the District 6 council seat after 8 years. What letter grade would you give him for overall job performance?
I would give him an A, and not just because he's endorsed me, because nobody has done more than Lee Brand on the council. You can look across the aisle, Democrats and Republicans alike, and they respect Lee Brand. That's why he has like 100 endorsements. He authored 18, I believe, different pieces of legislation to help the city run more efficiently and to keep us out of entanglements, putting the general fund at risk. And so I think he's done a fantastic job. He's been at the forefront of keeping the city on solid ground. Unqualified A.
Boy, hot seat here. I would give Mr. Brand a C. And the reason I would give him a C is because public safety has been cut year after year after year. Some of the decisions made in the general plan and the development code, I think were absolutely just yuck for anybody who is a business owner. And Woodward Park, the trees have died. Many of them have died, and I think that the District 6 as a whole, we have been largely ignored, and maybe I said this earlier, rightfully, not earlier tonight, but rightfully so, because we did go through the Great Recession. But our district has been ignored, and there also has not been enough interest or help in getting help for small business owners, and that's something that I've been disappointed with. So I would say a C for those reasons.
Yeah, I've known Lee Brand for a number of years. I like him. He's very personable. If I had to give him a grade, I think I share Ms. Carter. I give him a C. There's more to being a councilman than counting up your legislative acts. You have to be aware of public safety issues. You have to make sure that the parks are being well maintained. You have to do things more than just try to come up with acts. And one of the concerns that I really have, where I give him the C, is in 2009 he met with me about this bailout with the Grizzlies, and he said, "I'm going to do this." And I said, "Lee, it's the wrong thing. You should not be picking winners and losers. You should not be giving the Grizzlies another $750,000. Help them work, improve their business model, but don't bail them out. It's a bad, bad precedent." And yet I knew he was going to do it, and he led the effort to do it. That's a big problem for me. It's not what we should be doing. That's not what city government is all about. And but he has done some very good things, but that was a big problem. And just creating legislative acts, you have to do more than that as a council member.
Sure. Thank you very much. So we'll start with Holly, and then we'll go to Gary, and then Jeremy with your closing statements, and that will conclude this portion of the debate.
Great. So first of all, thank you for allowing me to be here tonight. Tonight we've been able to hear some different perspectives from my opponents. We've got to hear perspectives from the past. We've got to hear perspectives based upon the present status quo. And as your council member, I will bring to you a voice of the future, a voice that focuses on solutions for the real problems we have, a voice that's independent, that is not owned by the political establishment, that is not obligated to the political agenda of a few. I do strategic communications, and I solve problems for a living. I'm able to talk about public safety problems. I'm able to talk about habitual vagrancy that we lack the political will to do anything about. And I'm able to actually talk about the fact that we are not business friendly. I'm a Republican, I'm a conservative, I'm a business owner, I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, and I get it. And I'd appreciate your vote. Thank you.
No, I think you. Who's up? Oh, I'm sorry. I have devoted my entire adult life to helping people, to serving other people. I'm a clinical psychologist. I work with people every day to help them work through issues, solve problems. I ran for the city council in 1997 and won. And I ran because I had small children at that time, and we were in a crime wave. We were #1 in auto theft, #2 in arson. And when I got there, we solved problems. We hired 170 police officers throughout the 4 years I was there. We balanced 4 budgets in a row, despite building a stadium. We cleaned up the graffiti. We built neighborhood parks. We initiated the Northeast Police Substation. We got things done. I held district meetings every month throughout the entire district. I let people know what was going on. When there were development issues, I stood strong against some developers who ran roughshod over council members before and the citizens in my district, and I said, that will not happen anymore. One person said to me, Gary, we know, who's a lobbyist at City Hall, said to me, we know you got friends, we know you got enemies, but you got no owners. And I never forgot that, because it's absolutely true. When I was at City Hall, I never forgot who I worked for. I worked for the people that elected me. And that's the kind of leadership we need. Principled, with integrity, honesty, speaking about the real issues, not giving pie-in-the-sky stuff, but telling them exactly how we're going to get there, what we need to be dealing with to solve our homelessness and our vagrancy and our panhandling problem, how we're going to hire police officers. That's what I'm all about. I'm about solving problems. I serve people. When I served this nation as a Navy veteran, as a naval officer, I couldn't have been more prouder. And it was a very natural thing for me to go into public service. So now that my kids are grown and gone, I love this city. I'm not going anywhere, and I want to serve again. And I'm excited about it. And as I've walked the precincts, people are very excited about my returning and giving another opportunity to serve. And I'm very excited about it, and I ask for people's support. Thank you.
I'd like to thank the Reagan League and Bitwise and our moderators for this debate tonight. Fresno's at a crossroads, whether we stay on the path of fiscal sanity or whether we return the keys to those who would bring Fresno back to the brink. I'm the only conservative in this race. My conservative values govern my life, they govern my business, they govern the way that I would govern Fresno. I'm a man of my word. I will look you in the eye and tell you exactly what I think. It won't be hard to pin me down because I'm not going to be all over the map. I look forward to winning on June 7th, and with your help and God's, we will. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Let's give a huge round of applause to all the candidates. Jeremy Pierce, thank you very much. Thank you, Holly. Holly Carter. Dr. Gary Bredefeld.